Hi everyone. Have you ever wondered what life was like in one of those flyover states? Well, I'm from Kansas, and I'm from one of those towns that if you look on the map, isn't on the map. Just give you an idea of what my life in small town America is like. So come with me and we'll have an adventure. I spent several summers playing softball right here on this field. I actually didn't spend a lot of time at the park because I lived much closer to the school and often played at the playground there. But you can see what the park looks like. Slides, things for kids to play on, grills if you wish to grill and don't have one of your own. And it's a pretty quiet park. I spent the first 18 years of my life in this town. There's the church that I went to Vacation Bible School at. And the grain bin. Now it has changed some over the years. There used to be a car dealership over here. You can see the businesses. Now once the blue building used to be the Cherry Blossom Cafe. We used to have a small grocery store over here. The post office used to be over here. Now it's a brand new post office and it's located on this side. But you get an idea of what the main street looked like. And yes, the traffic you see was the same as it was when I was growing up. Now I did leave town on occasion. Usually around twice a year we went up to Kansas City, did school shopping, and usually at Christmas. A few times we made it into Wichita. That's where often we traveled with my grandparents, and that's where I got my first Orange Julius. It used to be a big thing going that far. Now I'm Gen X, so I was in school here up until 1990, so 1980 to 1990. Where that senior center stands used to be a church. I had many times where I went to Girl Scout and Brownie meetings there. The City Hall is all new. It used to be that building right there, and it also contained your City Hall office, the ambulance, and your library for the town. Now that vacant lot wasn't always a vacant lot. There used to be a movie theater and a clothing store and an auto parts center. And this building over here, which is nothing anymore, once was a used clothing store and the town laundromat. I know you're probably thinking it's really sad to see such small towns dying out, but honestly, when I grew up here, we only had about 500 people in town. My graduating class had 19 people, and it was one of the biggest classes. And we brought in students from about 3 to 4 different towns in order to make up the school. The whole high school had 97 kids in it. But you're right, the towns are dying out. And let's get my dash cam all set up. And you can get an idea of what the town still looks like. You know, when you're little, the town seems so big. Now that you drive through it as an adult, it's actually very, very small. That used to be the lumber yard. As you can see, most of the streets don't have stop signs. It's only when you're pulling onto a main street that they do. It's just kind of a four-way stop. It rained last night. Looks like we could still get some rain today. And the main street to town. Spring is in the air. You can see the trees are starting to bloom. Come to a stop here. You know, when I lived here, this was way on the other side of town. I very rarely came this far, although my grandfather did live over on this side of town. You can see the water tower in the distance. As you can tell though, a lot of the houses are very small. People in this area are pretty poor, but we didn't know that growing up. You know, it's one of those where everybody, you know, pretty much are dressed the same. We bought our clothes at the same place. We all went to the same school. You know, so the thought of not having things, being poor, never really crossed our mind. We did have some kids that were poor, but on the whole, it wasn't anything that really crossed our minds. There's the park again. Let's head on over to the school. Now, most of these houses you see are actually pretty old houses. You know, when I grew up, it was everybody knew who you were. Everybody knew who your family was. They all showed up for Friday nights football games. There was a big sense of community then. It's a church. There are a couple of churches here in town, even though it is a town of about 500 people. And there is the school. This is where I went to school. Of course, at the time, they didn't have all the fences around it. They just had the fence in front. Side didn't have a fence. But there is kindergarten through 8th grade right there in that school. And then there's a gymnasium. And then when you got big, you came over here to the high school. And that would be this building right here. Grades 9 through 12 all went right there. And as I said, I graduated in 90, so from 80 to 90, this was the school I was in. And honestly, we never, other than a few trips to Kansas City, I never really had a vacation. We went once to Corpus Christi, and that's where I fell in love with the ocean. But a lot of times in the 80s, people just didn't travel, at least around here. You know, as I said, a lot of times they go to, you know, the lake, they go camping, they go fishing, things such as that. But yeah, this is where I was born, this is where I grew up and spent all my formative years. And so now you know why we're having adventures. The next destination, the next video will be the town I currently live in. I know one thing I didn't show you, but you probably wonder about, is where did kids hang out in that town? There was one spot, it was called the Dairy Spot, and it had your arcade games, it had pool tables, you know, we went and had ice cream there, and, you know, it served hamburgers and things like that. And also on Fridays, which I didn't show you because you really can't get to it anymore, well, I should say Fridays in the summer, a lot of times people went down to the quarry and went swimming. You would find a large majority of the town down there. You know, when it was blackberry season, you'd see a large majority of the town along the railroad tracks where the adults talked. And, you know, as kids went out with our buckets and picked blackberries. So we did have things that we did, you know, places we hung out, things like that.